KR's daily programming do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, could target date funds actually hurt your retirement? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon and welcome to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I'm your host, Bob Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, if you have a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com. Love to get your questions, love to get your comments, whatever you need help with. That's all at the website at Ask Bob section in the website, or you can just simply send an email to info@prudentmoney.com. Definitely want to be there to help you and give you any information that you might need or point you in the right direction. That's all at prudentmoney.com. Let me ask you a question, because it's getting real now, because we are getting close to Christmas. Even with this early Thanksgiving, it'll be here before you know it. I trust that over the weekend you got quite a bit done, putting up Christmas tree decorations, and most importantly, got together a good game plan and went Christmas shopping. Now, we'll be talking about this. I usually do this once a year. Well, obviously, because it's Christmas is only once a year. But some tips that you may not think about when it comes to shopping for Christmas. Because this could be, actually not could be, I think it is the most expensive time of the year. And if you're not prepared for it, which most people are not, you could make some buying mistakes, and you could end up with some long-term debt that you didn't necessarily want to have. I think one of the good things about Christmas shopping today and within today's technology is that we can do it online. The only one point that I want to make is to make sure that you do your research ahead of time. Anytime you can buy something online, I'm a big advocate of that. And start to train your kids, and you can do this at a young age, which is really interesting to me. Train your kids to type out a Christmas list with the links, that kind of thing. It's so much easier. It can keep you ahead of the prices, what they cost. You can do some price shopping, and make sure that you're not spending way too much more than you thought you would. That's the best case situation where somebody's budgeted. Let's say that you didn't budget and that you're going to wing it based on what you got in your bank account and or your credit card. Just be realistic about what you're spending. Be realistic about what you put on your credit card, and be realistic about how you're going to get it paid off. Just a couple of things to consider as we get closer. Unbelievable this way, as fast as this year has gone by, and it is Christmas time and coming up quick, so be ready for it. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, should you trust the target date strategy? And that's the question that we're going to ponder today. Now, here's the thing. Now, I'll explain more about this in a minute. The thing about target date funds, and if you listened to me for a long time, I've warned you about these funds and warned you about making sure that you have a full understanding if you still want to use them and how it works. Most people don't understand the makings of these funds and how it all works. And they just kind of go for the gimmick. It's kind of a gimmick, and if you look at the gimmick or the thesis, let me say, of the target date strategy, on paper it looks like it makes total sense, but there's way more to it. And since we've been talking about adjusting for risk, which means to either reduce risk, or even if you're looking, maybe you're not looking to reduce risk, you're looking at your funds for potential rebound, and you look at this target date strategy and you go, this really looks pretty interesting. I sure would like to have this kind of just done for me and let it go on autopilot, which is the wrong way to look at it. Then you might consider it. But let's talk through this for just a second. Because for years, the target date funds have really kind of been the go-to option for retirement investors. And it makes total sense. When you invest in a target date fund, you put your money in the hands of a money manager, and the whole idea behind it is to adjust your asset allocation, or how your money's divided in the portfolio, as you near retirement, so that you don't have to. And of course, they do this on a risk basis. The younger you are, the more risk you take, which I have a little bit of an issue. I think everybody should not fall into a category. Everybody should have their own risk strategy that is a complement to how they want to invest. But they're sold and recommended as kind of this set it and forget it option. And making it, especially that they're almost a staple in most 401k plans, there's a lot of attraction to it because you don't have to do anything. TIAA just did a survey of retirement plans and looked at target date funds and didn't come away with too good of an opinions about how they work. Target date funds are broken down into a series of funds based on your target retirement date. So if you are going to retire in 2040, let's say, then you want to put your money into a 2040 target date fund. And what that fund does, that fund adjusts for risk as you get older and as you get close to 2040 to where you're ready for retirement. Although I like the idea of having, that's a strategy, and I talk about a strategy, I like the strategy idea of it. I don't necessarily agree with how they go about it. But it's made it even tougher this year because target date funds are nothing but stocks and bonds. So when you're thinking, well, but it's a relief that we are taking less risk, well, you really may not be, and you may be sitting with a fat double-digit loss in your account when you are going to retire tomorrow. It's very possible. Retire this next year. So you got to be careful with it. And TIAA found that the plan sponsors, or those who manage the 401k plan at your company, they are losing confidence in these funds. And the thing is, up until this year, even some of your last bear markets, to some degree, the target date strategy worked. But when you have a situation, actually didn't work as well in 2008. I will take that back, during the financial crisis. But today, when you're looking at double-digit losses on bonds, double-digit losses on stocks, well, you're going to get double-digit losses probably across the board on target date funds. TIAA did this survey. Only 66% of plan sponsors believe that target date funds will help their employees prepare for retirement, down from 78% in a previous survey conducted in 2020. That goes to show me a couple things. The first one is that employers don't really understand how these funds work. They don't understand the true risk that's involved in this idea of set it and forget it. And the other thing too is that 78% down to 66%. I would expect confidence in these plans, especially seeing the returns should be well below 50-40% in confidence. I can't believe it's that high. But it says that employers are beginning to recognize several critical shortcomings of traditional target date funds and now seek retirement offerings to safeguard their employees' savings and provide options for guaranteed money income for life. And they're looking to provide some new customized target date solutions that offer greater personalization and include access to guaranteed income in retirement that cannot be outlived. This you got to be careful about. I like the concept, but you got to be careful about, and that is anything that says we're going to pay you. We'll talk about this here a little bit more in depth in a minute. But we're going to pay you an income. This is going to be part of your 401k plan. At age 70, for the rest of your life, we're going to pay you $1,000 a month if you put some of your retirement savings into this particular program. The thing that you got to know is that every one of these life insurance companies have these guaranteed income funds that pay out a guaranteed income down the road at a certain age. What you got to realize is that each life insurance company that has one of these products, some are good, some are not so good. Some pay more, some pay less. So when you're only getting a selection or a choice of one, keep in mind that you may not be getting the amount that you could be getting by going another route. We'll talk a little bit about that here in just a second. 66% of employees are worried that their employees aren't saving enough, up from 57% in 2020. I would think that would be a higher number, but once again, that's what they came up with. 77% of employees say that saving for retirement is their top priority. Certainly doesn't show in the numbers. But these surveys, they point out some things aren't so accurate, some things aren't so realistic. Surveys have got their place, but always keep in mind that it's most of the time kind of a small subset of people they're actually surveying. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. We are up against a break. Stick around, and I'll be right back.
The Word for Today is excited to announce the new official online home for the ministry of Pastor Chuck Smith and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org. At PastorChuck.org, you'll have instant access to thousands of hours of verse-by-verse teaching by Pastor Chuck Smith from Genesis through Revelation, and full access to special messages on subjects such as prophecy and much, much more. Also at PastorChuck.org, a full library of great teachings by Kay Smith, and a section where you can read some of Pastor Chuck's books online, all free of charge. So visit the new official online home of the Word for Today and the ministry of Pastor Chuck and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org.
Do you believe God has a plan for your life? How do we know which path is God's path for us? Well, Tuesday on Focal Point, Pastor Mike Fabarez is assuring us that God has provided us with a roadmap to follow. But learning to navigate it may take some practice. Be sure to tune in Tuesday to Focal Point.
8:30 a.m. on Bible School Radio 91.3.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Listen daily, 3:30 p.m. on Bible School Radio 91.3.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you've got a question for me or a comment, you can always go to the website, prudentmoney.com. Send it in, and I will get you taken care of. That's off the website, www.prudentmoney.com. So here's what you got to be careful about when it comes to target date funds. And one of these items, these points I'm going to make, is the biggest reason why you got to be careful with target date funds and why they're giving horrible results so far this year. Number one, I think it's unrealistic expectations that are set through the brochures, the marketing information, the commercials that are out talking about target date funds. It's unrealistic to think you can set it and forget it and everything's going to work out just great. It's going to take you perfectly safe, perfect strategy all the way into retirement. Very unrealistic, because there's a lot that could go wrong. This is one of those deals, those strategies that really emphasize savings over everything else. But I've always told you there's 5 different elements to successful retirement planning. There's the plan itself. There's the investing of the money, which, you believe it or not, is part of the problem. People don't get the money invested. There is the management for risk and management strategy. There is the benchmarking, which tells you where you are in relationship to your goals. I mean, these things are very, very important, that you look at all of them, not just saving. They make this sound like it is so easy. I'll never forget this Fidelity commercial. They were promoting their target date funds, and a person from Fidelity was interviewing the couple and asking the couple, "What are you doing in your 401k plan?" And they said, "Well, some type of strategy. I don't really understand it. That changes and reduces risk as I get older." The more that they asked, the less they knew. And I thought it kind of made the people look, very unprepared to answer these questions on something they should know about. But they come back and they reassure the person watching the commercial that you can be very uninformed and this strategy will still work for you. It's kind of the overall message. Just easy. I can't say it enough times. When it really comes down to money is too complicated to be easy. And if it looks too easy, you need to look more at you would need to investigate more, because nothing is just easy. The big problem, what happens when bonds and stocks both lose? And that's what, of course, is happening today. Then what happens in retirement? Basically, they take you up to a certain point and said, now you can retire. You should be in the perfect portfolio. Of course, they have done no planning. There's none of the auxiliary things that surround the investment plan or the strategy that they're to help them. But what do you do now? Well, how much risk do you really take? You can still consider, because it's kind of one of those things where if the 40-60 plan, I guess, is supposed to continue to take you down the path, but is that the right place to be? And then what about the liability for employers? Because I think we're going to see that after this year, is that you put this target date system into my 401k plan, Mr. Employer, and you gave us all this marketing that said it was an easy, now a low risk way to ultimately get to retirement. And now this year has exposed the problems that come along with these particular problems. And then the last issue that I have with this, a big issue that I have with this, is that a company like, say, Fidelity, they have 2 sides of their business. They have the advisor side, which encompasses fee-based advisors and encompasses commission-based advisors. Then they have the retail side, which just is people working directly with Fidelity and cutting out the advisor. They also have 4 advisors who sell mutual funds. They have the target date lineup of funds that they also have the retail side, which don't have the commissions on it. They have it on the advisor side with the commissions that will pay out, that will obviously lower the return on the long haul. Now tell me where this makes sense. Why would you put a fee on something that you're going to set it and forget it? Now, I'm not a big fan of this, the whole set it and forget it attitude or strategy, let me say. But why would you pay a fee for that? A commission for that could be fairly high when you're not technically going to move the money out. You're just going to leave it there. Or why would you charge a fee against it And even though you're not going to change anything, just something to consider. But here's the biggest reason why target date funds don't work, ultimately, because most investors don't pay attention to the cycles. Most target date funds, based on the risks that they're taking, have horrible results when the cycle turns from good to bad. And remember, investments in the stock market, everything rolls in a cycle. You go, if you can picture this for a second, at the very bottom of the cycle, you start going up to on the left-hand side. Everything's growing. Everybody's making money. Greed is getting out of hand. You get to the top of that circle, then you start to come down where people start losing money. Then we go into a bear market, maybe go into a recession, and you lose a ton of money, and you get down at the very bottom, and you start all over again. You start rebounding and recovery out of that bear market, and you start making money again. It's a cycle that has gone on since the beginning of time, the beginning of the stock market. And sometimes they're very large cycles, sometimes they're very small cycles. And unless you have a plan B strategy in those, when those cycles hit, I don't care what these target date funds are doing, they're probably not going to save you any heartache. And definitely there, if you're in retirement, there's, what do you do? What steps do you take? But it really does come down. I think the biggest reason and why employers will be asked some tough questions is that the answer to that is we didn't consider the cycle. And the cycle this year is a double whammy because you have bonds losing money and you have stocks losing money at the same time. And the bigger problem is that bonds just aren't losing money. They are losing almost as much as stocks are losing. So there's no diversification that's really working. Now, I'm over-characterizing target date funds. There's a lot of different types of and sets of target date funds because a lot of mutual fund companies offer them because they ultimately want to get into that 401k money and be put into a 401k plan as the target date representative, their funds. But it's the cycle that's the reason why they are being exposed this year. Now, what should employers really do? In fact, we've talked about this, how employees are suing their employers for fiduciary reasons, that they didn't provide good funds, and they provided too much risk in their 401k plans, all this kind of stuff. Funds that weren't suitable. I personally think those are the absolutely craziest lawsuits, but it's part of the fabric of our society. Employers, if you really want to cut down on the liability, introduce financial education classes into your company as a part of your culture and make it mandatory that everybody goes during working hours. Obviously, not everybody goes at the same time, but you provide these educational-based workshops on company time. I'm telling you, it's a one way that you should be able, and I'm not an attorney, but you should be able to cut through the liability that you thought you were, the safety measure you thought you were getting with target date funds. Offer the services of a financial planning. Partner with a firm to where somebody can call a financial planner, ask questions, get advice because they know the costs are already taken care of. And then look into building your own income strategy. Did you know that at age 59 and a half in most plans, you can roll out some of your 401k plan? What if you were to, if you wanted some guaranteed income plans down the road, why don't you see what's out on the market and roll some money into that from your 401k plan, and then by the time you retire, you have a very nice little income maybe that's built up that you can use and to take care of funding part of your retirement. There's a lot of things I think that they can do, employers can do to reduce their liability. Unfortunately, target date income or target date funds are not going to be the answer, I don't believe. Not all the time. You know, it's one of these things where target date funds are the answer all the time. Kind of the way they market it, maybe not so much all the time. Just a couple things to consider today. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time till we do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.